gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is me, Dukect T, here, well, not really live as we're recording, here on the Dukect Lounge, and I have an interesting guest, a returning guest, our returning champion, Mr. Chris Rowdy C. Moore. Say what's up, baby. What's up, man?
Johan, hello, everybody. Coming to you, well, I guess not live, but currently from New Orleans, in town for the Sun Belt Conference basketball tournament. Just for anybody who actually out there who's interested in college basketball, but definitely glad that I was able to put aside the time in between these do-or-die college basketball games to jump in on the Dukect Lounge.
Well, you know, and speaking of things that have been very cutthroat and all the craziness that's happening for March Madness, the road to Wrestlemania has been, well, slight bumpy to say the least in terms of storytelling, and quite honestly, it's a lot of just, you know, and I've been saying this on the podcast from me, and you already expressed your frustration to it. It's been, well, just lackluster. It felt like the show has been, well, it's just there's the pieces, they know what they were going to, but the way they went through it, it's kind of confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we're just for the record, I don't know when this this video is going to get published online, but we're recording this on a Friday evening. I actually recorded my next Wrestling Mark video on Monday, which I think was the I guess the 6th, I believe, the 6th of March, which will be published on, I guess, the 13th of March, because I had to record in advance because of this trip I took to New Orleans, and I'm actually going to have to make a follow-up video probably very soon, because the thing is, I recorded that video almost right after WWE Fastlane, and before at least the SmackDown, but definitely the SmackDown that aired following it. At the time that I recorded it, I was really down on what it looked like the main event for SmackDown's World Championship at WrestleMania was going to be. And when I talked about that in the video, it probably was premature on my part, I have to say, because I will say this. Now that it looks like the world title match for SmackDown at WrestleMania is going to be just straight up Bray Wyatt against Randy Orton, it's probably the best scenario they've got. It looks like AJ Styles is completely out of the picture. I just didn't think it made sense. Look, that's no offense to AJ Styles, who's been of all the newcomers that have come into WWE in the past year, he's been the best in my opinion.
You would say phenomenal?
Good one. That's a good one. Yeah, but even as great as he's been, and I know it's disappointing for him, he just hasn't. It just doesn't make sense for the storyline that they were going for once they put the title on Bray Wyatt. But now, am I disappointed that it looks like still Luke Harper is out of the main event as well? Because that's what I thought it should have been. At least this is where they were going. I thought the best possible match for SmackDown at Mania would be a triple threat match: Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton versus Luke Harper, the whole Wyatt family up against one another.
I think that was going to be, but I think the way they handled it and bungled it the entire way. I mean, then they had the whole Battle Royal, which, let's be honest, Luke Harper won that match. Yeah. It was, I understand what they tried to do, a tie finish, but it was really the way it's execution, which it looks like
what they ended up doing was by having it be a tie and then have Styles win the match between them. Obviously, they were trying to set a build up towards getting AJ Styles a WrestleMania match, which looks like it's going to be against Shane McMahon. Is that is the best possible match? More than likely not, but it's probably the best thing they could do with Styles, just because what else were they going to do? Throw him in another, ladder match or multi-person match for the Intercontinental title?
No, I honestly think the best way they could have done it is have him win the title and hold it to WrestleMania, and then have John Cena have him fight for the 16th time championship there.
We're on the same page here now. You basically just took the words out of my mouth, because I've been thinking more and more and more as to what really should have happened. And I think they basically, what the storylines they're doing with the world title on SmackDown, it's not a bad one. But just like I think on Raw they jumped the gun by putting the women's title on Bayley. I think what they've currently done with the world title on SmackDown, they did it about 2 months too soon. Because I would say it should have been John Cena in and winning the Royal Rumble, and then going on to face Styles at WrestleMania. We got a great match between those two at the Royal Rumble. I saw it in person there in San Antonio. It was, well, lack of a term, a phenomenal match. And I thought those two carried each other really well. That would have been a great WrestleMania match. And then once Cena becomes 16-time champion at WrestleMania, then you can have him drop the belt to Bray Wyatt, and then you've got up to a full year to run that whole storyline of the Wyatt family. You could have it just about at any time set up this twist that Randy Orton was playing Bray Wyatt from the beginning, which is, it's not a surprising twist.
But it would have been, I think him holding the tag belts for a while would have been more, instead of being there for a week and then dropping it to American Alpha, which has basically been, they have been, disappeared. They have not been seen or have been thought of like SmackDown for the past couple weeks, and they have talk about a team that has tremendous potential. I like them. They can have great matches. They have this type of team angle without team angle type of appearance. They are legit athletes, but it's like they have no storyline to them. There's nothing to them.
It's almost like Gable is a second coming of Kurt Angle. Pretty much, at least as far as his abilities in the ring go, he hasn't yet shown the personality and character that Kurt Angle had for sure. Because I'll tell you this: when I first started watching wrestling, about around early 2000s, 2002, 2003, Kurt Angle was one of my favorites to watch, just because of the character and personality he was. Whether he was a face or a heel, he knew how to play to the crowd. He was one of the absolute best, which is why one thing I'm definitely looking forward to at WrestleMania is seeing Kurt Angle get inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, and his many moments in WWE, including stuff. I mean, he is, and funny enough, I think Triple H mentioned in an interview. He said that he never seen anyone get pro wrestling quickly as Kurt Angle. He got it as quickly as, I don't know. He because once I saw him, Kurt Angle way back in the day, 1990, he had everything. You felt like he was, you just not only just did the wrestling parts, but also the comedy, the promo, everything.
He was definitely a very unique talent in being able to know how to play up a character and play to the crowd. And for someone to have come out of the amateur ranks, that's very impressive on his part. The more and more I hear about it, I think I did actually buy his first autobiography, and he talked and bringing up all about it. And it's very impressive. Everything he was able to do. As far as going back to the title matches at this WrestleMania. The SmackDown World title match, it hadn't been what I thought it could have been, which is really disappointing, because I've said for several months now, SmackDown's been the better of the two shows. They've actually been good at having good storylines, having good characters. It's why the ratings on Raw have actually supposedly been increasing. No, check that the ratings on SmackDown have been increasing, but at the moment, I'm going to admit I probably have a bit more intrigue in the Universal title match on Raw with Goldberg and Brock Lesnar.
Because there's story, there's weight behind it. There's a bit of, the backstory of Lesnar. This is the one person that he cannot beat. This is the one thing he is in the underdog role, which is unfamiliar to him. And this is something of a way to him to experience his dominance.
And that's where the whole purpose of Goldberg winning again in squash fashion when he beat Kevin Owens for the title, that comes into play very much, because they go into this match now. Not only has Brock never still beaten Goldberg, but recently he hasn't even seen anyone last longer than he did against Goldberg, let alone figure out how to beat him. So that's the intrigue about that, is that, yeah, we probably think that Lesnar is going to win this match, but we don't know how he can do it yet. That's at least the intrigue there of how he's going to pull it off. And I've said this, I would not be surprised if they make this final match between them an Iron Man match. Maybe only a 30-minute Iron Man match, but they might just pull that off to have. I think they would need some type of gimmick match for a rubber match, so to speak, like this. It's not technically a rubber match, but you know what I'm getting at here. And they might go with the type of gimmick that would ensure the viewers that it's not just going to end in 2 minutes this time. I think that Lesnar and Heyman may goad Goldberg into that kind of match.
I think that'd be good, but to me, I don't care how much people hate this, but I think the Iron Man match with Goldberg, I don't think he could do it, and he was never really a stamina dude in WCW back in the day. Even though he was in the NFL, which is a very high intensive sport, which if you don't have stamina, he wouldn't last long in the NFL. So he does have stamina, but to me, an Iron Man match in that situation with Goldberg, I don't think that's gonna fly. But to me,
they may find a way to pace themselves in, like I said, a 30-minute or so. And maybe I'm just grasping for straws. Maybe I'm just taking a wild guess here. I get a feeling they're going to try something to make sure to guarantee to the fans it's going to last longer than 2 minutes this time.
Yeah. Personally, though, I wish they could have done something a little better, and it would actually get someone more of a positive, but someone who actually has a younger generation about positive say, oh, we don't like these part-time things. I actually said this, and people were so mad at me or whatever, even though it's probably would be best for, well, what Triple H would say, what is best for business. If you would have put a third guy in there, like say a Roman Reigns in that situation. Imagine that, Roman Reigns versus Goldberg versus Lesnar, a triple threat for the Universal title, main eventing WrestleMania. Right there, Roman Reigns is elevated to a point that he is like, yes, he is right up there with the legends of Goldberg and Lesnar. In fact, it actually would be very interesting to see Goldberg and Roman Reigns, have it out, because they did have a stare down pre-Rumble. So it would have been very interesting to see that.
And you know what? And that actually reminds me of, apparently Sami Zayn was talking in a shoot interview that, yeah, he said he doesn't mind. Not only does he doesn't mind having these older part timers available in there because he knows they'll draw viewers. He said he'd like to get involved in programs with some of these younger guys. You could really have kind of the best of both worlds in using the older guys, the name brands, to maybe help generate a push for the younger guys. However, it does look, as far as Roman Reigns goes, is he's going to face The Undertaker.
Yeah.
At Wrestlemania, and we kind of saw that coming with the confrontation those two had back at the Rumble.
Yeah. It is. It's something. I'm looking at this right now. Wrestling Rumors. I think they have a transcript there. I will put the link in the description because I like to be, somewhat professional. But it is something to see about Sami Zayn. There are also people who want to work with them. And I mean, heck, Sami Zayn did work with him in the Royal Rumble. He got speared. I think he got jackhammered by Goldberg. I think chokeslammed by The Undertaker. And just beat up mercifully the entire time in the Rumble. The entire time. So, honestly, though, when you look at guys like, say, Sami Zayn, I feel like on Monday night, before you had this whole thing with Strowman, which, funny enough, now everyone online seems to like him now. They're so into him, even though I could probably, they're like, oh, he's another big guy, doesn't know what he's doing. But he has won over a lot of people.
And you know what? I think maybe because he's one of the guys who, I mean, it's a very simplistic character in being this just absolute monster of power, but it's a character that he's found a way to play up to the hilt.
Oh yeah, it is, and it's just he, just very simple, and I think he and Sammy had a pretty good story, even though the way they got there, the 10-minute match I think was stupid, and the way they had that, It's kind of like, funny enough, I was actually watching, let's see, Babylon 5, actually. And it was a late season. And the captain, they actually saw this, this captain, he was talking about, the Earth trying to, defend themselves against aliens. And he said, well, I think the alien race almost extinct humanity. They surrendered, so we could beat any human race, even though humanity was basically on the brink of extinction. He just smiled and said, "Okay, yeah, we could take on everyone else." It's like one of the most hollowest victories of Sami Zayn's career, and they did rectify that later when the match when Strowman basically beat the piss out of him in the last man standing match, but. It is something interesting because Sami Zayn has been in this whole rut. I honestly think he should have went to SmackDown, and I think it would have been more interesting him and say The Miz had a feud with the Intercontinental title instead of sticking in Dolph Ziggler. Even though the promos, Ziggler and Miz, they did some good stuff and something like that. I think it would have been so much more emotional and much more of a positive thing to have someone like Sami Zayn get the Intercontinental title, get a big win, and him progressing as a character.
Yeah, please, don't underestimate. I think it is highly underestimated how well the Miz is and his ability as a character could put over people as faces. So yeah, Sami Zayn, as anyone was or Sami Zayn working with someone like the Miz who knows how to play off the crowd and help generate sympathy for whoever he's going up against, that's a definite advantage. The thing I just think with Sami Zayn is they just need to find some type of personality for him, and this was an issue where basically the problem was, like I said, when he came up into WWE, the only thing they had him going with him was he's out to get revenge on Kevin Owens, and that's basically what it was brought up for, and since then they just haven't been able to do anything, and it's just like, I actually think back to really when John Cena himself first came up. When he did, he really didn't have a personality, and it was only because Stephanie McMahon heard him rapping on a bus and decided that might be something to incorporate on television, and they decided to run with it. They gotta find something like that, not just for Sami Zayn, but a number of wrestlers, I think, especially on Raw, to find a way to just give them unique personalities that can cause especially the mainstream fans to identify with them.
Yes, and again, it's something, the reason why a lot of people watch SmackDown overall, for the most part, was because I mean, who would have thought something like and I was tired of Ellsworth. I wasn't on the Ellsworth bandwagon, but I will admit that they made interesting television while he was just a prop for Ambrose. That whole AJ Styles feud. It was an interesting thing, and he adds a lot of characterization and such. That alone showed me, you know what, they actually know what they're doing. The SmackDown they actually care about storylines and consequences and such. You could just look for another example, the women's division on SmackDown. You had 3 different separate feuds in the women's division, and each person in the women's division, has bare bones as it is. Each one had a reason to actually to beat it. It had a reason to compete in these matches, and the match has been pretty decent for the most part. Rather than Raw, which I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Well, what I was getting is, I think one of the reasons is that, especially the fact that they're finding ways to get all of these wrestlers and characters, including the women, into storylines. I mean, they realized once they, especially after they turned Ellsworth heel and knew that they just I think they kind of realized he didn't have much else to do with him outside of his feud with Ambrose. Then they noticed that, really they've got Carmella who hasn't been able to do much. So, hey, we'll just pair them together. And that is kind of working. At least they've got something going with these two. And again, that's one of the reasons why I've made no bones about the fact that I am a huge Becky Lynch fan. But she doesn't have to have the belt for me to be glad for her, because they're still putting her in storylines, putting her on regularly on cameras, and giving her angles that work for her character. Just like why years ago when I was just watching, I loved watching Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, trying to remember who else was those little kids, and Chris Jericho and the like, the younger Jericho. None of those guys had to be champions for them to be entertaining, because they were the type of characters and personalities that you could give them any type of angle, any type of program, and they could run with it and make it entertaining.
Oh, yes, that's the thing. And go back to Monday Night Raw, and holy crap, it's the same show over and over and over and over again. It's the song that never ends. I'm tired of Charlotte. I am tired of Sasha, and it just seems like it's the same show. And Bayley, sadly, that to me was just stupid, having her win the title on a random episode of Raw, and then not only that, but end the pay-per-view streak of Charlotte on a forgettable Fastlane show.
Yeah,
and I will say this:
that still the women on Raw are still probably the best thing going for it, which is unfortunate. I said, I still really enjoy Charlotte's character. I think she's one of the ones that play it to the hilt. The problem with that whole division is, yes, completely agree with the fact they pulled the string on Bayley far too early. It should have been at WrestleMania that she won the belt for the first time, ended Charlotte's streak, all of that. It would have been the perfect scenario. I had it all in my head and everything. Now, unfortunately, I think now that she's got the belt already and everything, we're kind of seeing Bayley being exposed as still not. The problem is she can't carry a promo very well, I have to say.
Same with Charlotte. The one thing I would say, Sasha could do it as a heel, but Charlotte, I mean, she can't.
I'll get to Sasha in a moment. I will say that at the very least, Charlotte, I think,
she can't control the decimals of her voice. Like, how dare you? I'm like, just pick a decimal in your voice and roll with it.
Perhaps, I guess, just the fact that at least the character she's going for works for television. Could she improve on it? Sure. With Bayley, they're just going with this completely humble, self-effacing, all gee shucks personality that it just doesn't work for the setting of pro wrestling, I don't think. Especially not for her to be the title holder. You just don't get a sense that she has the type of confidence that I always say this, and I apologize to any Bayley fans out there. Because I'm sure that Pamela is a very nice person in real life, and she's one of the hardest workers out there, and I'm sorry I don't have a better term for this, but Bayley is basically Cena with boobs. And sorry to be that callous about it, but the difference is Cena exudes confidence all the time. You get the feeling that he knows he can and that he will. You just don't get that with the type of personality Bayley is showing, and it kind of makes her character not that believable as champion. That's what I'm saying. She's got to get some kind of angry streak going, I think.
Yes, confidence. That's what she had in NXT.
Somebody finally breaks her and say, look, I'm a nice person. I do this for Izzy and all those people out there that cheer my name, but I am not going to take your crap, and I am not going to back down from you. That's the kind of thing I think you can do that. Now, now to focus on Sasha. I've said for quite a while now that yes, I do believe a heel turn is necessary for Charlotte because she's probably it's kind of the biggest issue they've got with the women on Raw right now, and the fact that the character they created for her, the whole boss character, it's the type that I think really works for her being a type of arrogant, in-your-face, I'm better than everyone else personality. Unfortunately, they're having her in the recent months being this smiling good girl who always looks like she's facing extreme odds and extreme adversity and always having to battle back. I mean, they put her in a program with Nia Jackson. I watched those things scared that she's going to get broken in two by Nia. And you know what? it works in that sense, but I don't think Sasha is the type to do it. Now the problem is, and they've not. I think a heel turn is coming, but the storyline they've had with her now, it wouldn't make any sense for her to turn heel, especially not with what they did with her at Fastlane, where she beats Nia Jax, she overcomes that obstacle, and then she only indirectly helps Bayley win her match. I've always thought that if she had lost to Nia again, then takes out her frustration by getting Bayley disqualified and allowing her to retain her title that way, setting up possible triple threat between Charlotte, Bayley, and Sasha, that at least would have made more sense for why she would turn heel eventually.
One thing is that I will look at both Sasha and all these other the characters is Nia Jax. I feel like she was rushed out too soon, and I like her. I think she's different. She's slowly getting that confidence. But I think a good another year in NXT, she'll be ready for Raw. I think she should have been in. I honestly think she should be NXT Women's Championship champion now, and Asuka should be in this position. I think she would be much more, and it would build up, and that sort of thing. It's just like it's the same thing that W is. That she's big, so she could be good. Like no, I see potential in her, but she needs to be more, seasoned. If you understand what I'm saying. But
and it would, I guess I can see it would probably make more sense to have held her back now, just because of the fact that that they have been focusing on Charlotte and Sasha and Bayley for the title picture. So in that sense, she's kind of been pushed. Now that she's on Raw, she's kind of been held back in that regard. And yeah, that basically had to keep her out of the title picture because it's clearly at the moment those other three are the ones they want at least really fighting for the belt, and it makes no sense why she would never win the belt if she got put in a title match yet. So yeah, maybe they probably rushed her too soon with her call-up, and now are struggling to find a way to keep her in storylines.
Yeah, that would be more. Another thing I liked is like one thing I think really did something about Nia is that I honestly wish she would do this, like say, not like, but actually was frustrated. It's like, when Bayley became champion, she's just like, oh, now I want to get like, where were you when Charlotte and Sasha were going back and forth? Shouldn't you be? You're so dominant. Why not go against the champion regardless of heel or face? And that's what I don't like about that. Like, you are such a force of nature. You should be going after anybody. You are this huge. Why do you need to ally? Why? Because it's just like it doesn't make any sense. Unless it's a partnership with Charlotte or anything else like that type of thing, which I think would be much better than Dana Brooke. Which, oh boy, she is definitely not ready. Yeah. She's not.
And it doesn't make it easier for me to hate her when outside the ring she comes out into the ring wearing Chuck Taylors. That doesn't make her very hateable in my book.
But honestly, you know what? I would only accept Dana Brooke as a manager if she was managing Emma again, which WWE seems to just the return of the whole Emma returns, and it's going to be insert date here. It seems like they're trying really hard to make a meme, and it's not working. It's just.
Yeah, but at the very least, I gotta at least give him credit for this. It makes me really disappointed that it hasn't worked because, at least with Emma, they're doing the one thing they used to do, and it's one thing they haven't done with all of these NXT call-ups, and I think it's another thing that's hurt the viewership. They're trying to give her one of those old-fashioned build-up promos they used to do with all of their wrestlers back when the days of OVW, when that was where they developed, and by the time because OVW wasn't broadcast in mass on an online network or whatnot, and WWE wasn't hyping it and everything, they basically, when wrestlers started developing in Ohio Valley, they gave that wrestler one character, one persona. When it was ready for them to come up to WWE, they had the chance to give them a different type for the WWE audience, and they built that up with these promos and stuff to anticipate them. But one problem is that in the last year, they've just automatically thrown all of these guys straight out of NXT, straight into WWE, and done so with no hype, as if they expect the audience to have watched NXT and therefore already know these wrestler characters. I think that's another one of the things that's really kind of hurt them.
Yeah, that's another thing is the character and the push of the characters, and until they actually fix that part, WWE.
Now, if we go back to another thing that's going into WrestleMania, I will say this: one area that I think they may finally be going in a good direction with is the one person that I've been the most critical of for the past several months, and that's Kevin Owens. I think
yes, they actually gave him.
He finally did turn on Jericho, which at first I didn't think that was the way to go. I thought that they would use him eventually dropping the belt to Lesnar, maybe to give him a face turn. I thought his character needed refreshment.
Oh, yes, it was.
A face turn might have been the way to go, to have Jericho turn on him. He would beat Jericho at Mania. Jericho would go back to Fozzy and whatnot, and then maybe with the crowd having been behind him and wanting to get behind him, that might be something to work on. But you know what? What they did do, damn, it works for me, because no longer is he this, instead of being this whiny personality and just instead of being this dark monster, makes it clear that he was going to do what he wants and take what he wants. That was the promo he cut the week after he took out Jericho, was the best work I've seen from him since he came to
I think he did some. This was something he needed. Honestly, this is something that he has been struggling since. Honestly, I would say after his feud with Cena, he just faded into this whole malaise of just being a part of, just being there. Nothing really important. And then you have Sami Zayn, and then afterwards.
And yeah, I've been very critical of Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, but I've always tried to keep in mind the fact that it's not necessarily him. I'm sure he's got all the potential in the world, I'm certain. And especially, what also kind of impressed me to him was I actually caught a part of another shoot interview he did back in 2012 when he was in Ring of Honor. And it was shortly after he had dropped the title belt in that promotion. He was talking about how, you kind of get handcuffed creatively when you're the champion, because all your angles have to revolve around defending the title. Now that I don't have the belt anymore, I think it might actually open me up to be more creative, which is what I want to do. So now that he's free of the world title, I think that we'll see what he does with Jericho at Mania, and I think they got the chance to actually build him up as a character again. And I think that's a chance to really work with something. They've got him. The potential for all these guys is there, and that's the thing. The pieces are there. They just haven't creatively been able to put them all together these last few months.
And that's the one thing I don't like. Honestly, the one problem his whole main event run, he didn't have any agency as a character. He had no agency whatsoever. He was just there as a comedy segment. And
the problem, I think, was the fact that because he was paired up with Jericho was stealing the show.
Yeah, he was beyond him, and
I'm saying, I say that because I'm one of the longtime biggest Jericho fans out there, but it's really just tough. Even at his age now, he just knows how to draw the crowd to him, and Owens was basically kind of getting left behind. As it turns out, I think they ended up using that to his advantage. There's your reason for why he would turn on Jericho. So they kind of made it work in the end, I guess.
Well, yeah, it did. But it just seems that the problem is, same thing with, it took a long while to get there. Same thing with the Seth Rollins and Triple H feud.
And that was a huge mistake. And at least there I know what the problem there was. They really just wrecked any chance of having any intrigue in that match by keeping Triple H off of TV after he first screwed over Seth Rollins.
And also, one thing that, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, just to back with me up, supposedly the reason for that was they were scared about having an angle like that get buried under going up against Monday Night Football, which that was kind of disappointing to me that they would think that, because remember, there was a time when WWE and Raw was intriguing audiences to the point that they were taking viewers away from Monday Night Football.
Yes, and yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think that's basically just, or I guess just the fact that, so they delayed bringing back that Rollins feud with Triple H for far too long, and then it's hit another snag because, Samoa Joe didn't do enough to protect him in that first feud, and now it's up in the air as whether or not he's actually going to be able to fight at Mania because of this injury. And that's the other thing, is that too many of these guys just keep trying way too hard and not doing these deals to protect themselves, and that's why we get all these injuries now. The whole thing between Triple H and Seth Rollins was probably one storyline that had the most potential, but they kind of wrecked the opportunity. And, give Triple H credit, at least he wants to help put over these guys, but creatively, things just keep getting in the way sometimes.
Oh, yeah, and it's one of the most creativity and such is you're gonna lose the Raw, but you have to get that basic side. And one thing I wish they did do the whole turn about Seth Rollins. The one thing I did not like about it is Seth Rollins did not show any type of why we should like him other than, but he's been going around saying he's the best. And recently, when he got screwed over, he was saying, "Yeah, I took down Finn Balor." I'm like, dude, why should I cheer for you? There's no real reason why I should cheer.
They're trying to turn Seth Rollins into the next Stone Cold. But you gotta remember one thing. What got the crowd behind Stone Cold Steve Austin, it started with him showing that he was the type of guy who would not quit when he did not quit against Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13. He had that moment that just made people at least respect him, and Rollins hasn't had that yet. And they're just going solely on the fact that they'll cheer for the jackass personality as long as he admits he's a jackass. Dude, if a guy would get respected and loved just for admitting he being a jackass, my character of Rowdy C would probably have 10 times more views on YouTube than he currently has.
But it's this whole lack of empathy and character that is one of the reasons why why should we like him? Why should we care about him? And even worse is the whole the not really no continuity, no consistency. Is that he wants to burn it all down, and then a couple weeks before Survivor Series, like, oh, you can trust me, Steph. Put me on Team Raw. I'm like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm. And I think there's one thing that really could be done. Maybe it could help. Maybe help with that continuity and consistency. But more of it can be used to help take some of these other wrestlers, the Sami Zayns and whatnot, and help try to build them help them build characters and show personalities that people can get behind. I think what WWE and Ross in particular needs more of, they need more sketches. They need more bits of wrestlers interacting outside the ring in other places to help show off their personalities. Recently, I've been rewatching the whole feud between John Cena and DX back around Survivor Series 2009, I believe it was. Those were some of the most entertaining promos I'd ever seen.
Yes.
And yes, Hornswoggle was thrown in there too, but it was just in a way that works. And keep in mind, that was a feud between three baby faces, which normally I say would never work. But those characters of Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Cena, they had the type of personalities that made it work. And because you had the thing of, yeah, Shawn and Triple H Hunter are best friends, best buds, but you know they're also intense competitors. They backstabbed each other in the past before, so you went into that match wondering what was going to happen.
And what did happen was...
And when the match started, bam! Shawn Michaels super kicks Triple H right off the bat. Suddenly that match is extremely intriguing. It was one of the best matches I've seen.
I was there live, actually.
Oh, good for you.
And it's funny, because dude got... I mean, I'm like... I was watching highlights getting hit, and I'm like, dude's gonna have like 50 concussions after this match.
Yeah.
I was like, God, like every time he got up, boom, right, headshot. I was like, basically like, boom.
Yeah, and yes, also actually one of the best promos I've seen actually came after Survivor Series, the Little People's Court segment.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. Some people don't like it. Some people, I'm in the middle of it. I can see why some people like it, some people didn't. But yeah,
I guess just them playing on the idea that there's this whole other world underneath the wrestling ring. It's just that type of ludicrous comedy that I love, and I admit that completely. So that was just really entertaining on my part. But by this whole same token, I think back to what's probably the most entertaining thing that I remember from Monday Night Raw in the last few months, especially since the last WrestleMania. And the one thing that comes to mind is when Sheamus and Cesaro got into a bar fight. That was one of the most entertaining segments I've seen, and it really kind of helped build their characters up. And the thing is, you know WWE is employing people that can create that kind of stuff with all the other shows they're putting off, entertainment shows they're putting on WWE Network. If they could maybe get some of those guys into the Raw creative stance and try to start creating those type of sketches to help build up these characters, that might help fill in their runtime. Why they wouldn't have to keep filling in 3 hours with the same matches over and over again. If they would take the time to maybe throw in some sketches that can be used to build characters, that would solve the runtime problem and help them build up the personalities of the wrestlers and the characters that the audiences can get behind.
But yeah, it's personally I still think it should have only 2 hours. And honestly, I would say time management is much. WWE needs to learn how to use good time management. I'm still dreading WrestleMania this 33 because I just like, oh goodness, not counting the pre-show. It's probably going to be at least around 4 to 5 hours of just this type of stuff. And I just look and say, a 3 hour, I mean, if you can't handle the 3 hour shows, you have to have overrun, which should have been phased out as like back in 2006. There's no point to have it. Is that they need to have better time management. But then again, that's something that I don't think it's going to be solved anytime soon.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I would agree with you that it wouldn't be a bad thing if Raw went back down to 2 hours. I will freely admit that. Triple H has said it would probably be better for everyone. But I do think there are some possibilities that it could work because at least for the first couple of years or so, when they were going with a 3 hour show, they managed to make it work on some level. And I think it was when they stopped throwing in the sketches that showed off the wrestlers' personalities and just tried to focus on just putting as many 5-star matches on the show as much as possible. There's no breather room on Raw. It's probably the best way I can put it. And I think they could, if the USA Network is insistent on Raw being 3 hours, I think that throwing in sketches like that, like what you did with Sheamus and Cesaro in that bar, what they used to do with D-Generation X, even the second third installments of DX were hugely entertaining on my part. I'm in the minority here because I actually thought they were more entertaining than Attitude Era DX. I actually compare it to, Ruthless Aggression DX was kind of like watching Animaniacs, while Attitude Era DX is like watching Brickleberry. Ooh. But that's just me, perhaps.
But it is a good, we revel in the nostalgia and such, and And there are some things and segments that I didn't like and didn't like around that time. Then again, I was mostly watching WCW before it went insane and such. I missed some of the Attitude Era, but when it was full on, and I started watching fully around 1999, and I didn't watch WCW that much. I was going back and forth like I used to, but and then WCW didn't really get back on till late 2000, early 2001, and it didn't really last that long. But it just seems that the WWE needs to get it needs better characterization, and SmackDown proved that that's why it beat Raw in the rating. That's why it's actually caring. And the one thing I will say is that I loved about SmackDown is that the authority figures are not the main part of the show. I
Now,
love that.
I will say this, and that's what I think. It may be great that that they're not trying to throw the authority figures into the spotlight, but I think unfortunately that's one of the reasons why putting Dean Ambrose on SmackDown when he was the champion was kind of a mistake. They really didn't have much to. They couldn't utilize Ambrose and his type of character on SmackDown when he was the champion, because you had him on the show that had the babyface authority figures and most of the baby faces on the roster, or at least the top ones. So they pretty much killed his title run when they put him in that program with Ziggler.
Oh
and,
gosh,
and Ambrose came off more as the bad guy in that whole program. And I think that's when that just killed his momentum, and they had no choice but to put the belt on Styles. And to their and his credit, they ran with that, and Styles as the champion just worked beautifully and helped build, they said, the character storylines that have carried SmackDown ever since.
yeah.
I love Dean Ambrose's character. He's one of the few of these guys. Of course, he came out years earlier and has already established this, but he's gone from being that completely. It's like, as a character, he's found a way to harness his insanity. And I always figured, if he turned out to be that type of character that learned how to do that, good God, he would be entertaining, and he has been, in my estimation. He's been that type that, I don't care what you think of me. I'm gonna do what I want to, and if it gets you upset, that's gonna make it even more entertaining. Which kind of works with this program. I think they're going to throw him in with Baron Corbin. I think it actually works. That he's just the type of lunatic that would dare go up against a guy like Baron Corbin. So that's one match I think I'm also looking forward to for WrestleMania. They've now got Ambrose now currently holding the Intercontinental title. I kind of get the feeling he'll drop it to Corbin then, but even still, he's just that personality. They've got him in a situation where his character, especially on that show,
really shines. It does. I've actually turned a bit around because I was like, man, Ambrose. I was like really down to him as champion, and now he's as the Intercontinental title. The transition was very seamless, and I'm like, these are the same show, and I'm like, who is? I mean, and then again, I heard there was a guy from NXT is pretty much watching up what SmackDown is doing. And it seems to be very interesting how that same type of stuff happening in NXT seems to be going into what SmackDown is doing, characters and the build-up. Personally, right now, I don't really agree with it that much. I honestly think AJ versus Orton should be a pay-per-view match. I have no idea why they wasted it on I mean, I don't want to say wasted because, it was a really good match. And at the end of the day, a wrestling show needs to have wrestling matches at the end of the day because you can't, you can't just go back to just squash matches and interviews. That the genie's out of the bottle. You can't put it back in. I know that's it's hard, but yeah, I mean, that's and you want to have the show mean something because if you just have squash matches or interviews, I mean, what's the point of watching? What's the point of really getting a hook there, saying, oh, everything's on a pay per view? You know what I'm saying, right?
So it's that weird dichotomy that you really do need to save your best matches for a pay-per-view. And that's something they have kind of struggled at recently, putting the belt on Bayley, that on a regular amount of Raw. A lot of people compare that to Goldberg beating Hogan for the title on an episode of Nitro. I don't know if it's that big, but it was definitely kind of a wasted potential there. But yeah, you need to find that dichotomy of keep your absolute best stuff for pay-per-view, but still have some good matches that they can both, one, sell Raw, the show itself, for ratings, but also find a way to build up the storylines for the pay-per-view matches. It's the fact that they've done it before. It's worked a long time before. They've got the tools to do it now. I really think that they haven't been able to get it to work yet.
Well, here's hoping that they will eventually get that to work, because that is the key. And with the road to WrestleMania being as it is right now, AJ versus Shane McMahon, why? I just no. I know what the one thing worst thing about I'm dreading about that match is AJ trying to basically, take offense from Shane. I'm like, Shane can jump from high places. That's great. And it's that daredevil attitude, but his punches, man. His punches are just why? And his breath.
I'll say this. I'm not quite as worried about that one as I am because I'm not. But this is just that I'm the guy who thinks that I didn't think a match like that should happen this year, because I'm thinking last year's match shouldn't have happened. And I'm not just talking about the fact that it was Shane versus Taker, and that didn't work out well at all. But I thought that when it came clear that Taker couldn't face Sting, I'll tell you, what I thought should have happened last year was they should have just put Taker in the Hall of Fame right then, and he would have ended his career and retired right then. And especially because it would have been the best setup, because Mark Calloway is from Dallas. And just for him to do that in his hometown, it probably would have been the better send-off. And now, yes, it just seems like Undertaker is just hanging on, and they're just using him for the drawing power. And it just makes me worry that he's gonna get broken down at the end of, like, no one really wants to see.
Well, yeah, it's something that the one thing that people want to see these matches. And with Taker and Shane, I still don't know why that happened. It's something that will confound me to this very day. It seems like they'll have no idea. It goes right to the Vice article I've read that Vince McMahon does not think ahead in his stories. He thinks right now in the moment, which is a plus in some aspects, but is a negative in others, because you need a plan. You need to know what these wrestlers, these characters, everyone else has a plan to go. What is their road to WrestleMania? And they have somewhat doing that, but it seems like after WrestleMania they go wildly out these weird ways. So
what if they had a plan with Taker last year? I mean, it was clearly going to be Undertaker versus Sting, but then Sting was never going to get the clearance to wrestle ever again, and that's when they kind of just pressed the panic button, so to speak, I guess, which they didn't know what to do with when Plan A fell apart there.
Yeah, that was something I think that most people will say. But before we wrap this up, it's like going for like over an hour, so I don't want to keep you too long, my friend. But the one thing you have to say about what's going on right now in the you're the positive for Raw. Are there any positive, like, say, for what SmackDown, the road to SmackDown? Because they need something that really should hook me. And is there anything on SmackDown, in your opinion, that has been booked decently or it's structured better on Raw? Because I only think it's the women's division, and that's going to going to be a pre-show match, which is depressing.
Well, we'll wait and see what happens there. But just at the very least, I think they're trying to make the best out of a bad situation there and doing whatever's possible. Because when Naomi got hurt, they were really selling her coming into Orlando as the champion. I think it's pretty clear they made her drop the title, but now that this is supposedly an open match for the championship, I think it's pretty clear they'll have Naomi show up to come in and get the big pop of winning the title back at Mania. That's something I'm going to look forward to. It's a negative for me just because of the fact that I end up agreeing to this bet with Mike Burmy as to he's going to give me some sort of like pastry, Milwaukee-based pastry if Becky ends up winning that match. I got to think of something to get him from Dallas that's not going to spoil, because if Naomi wins, which is almost certain is going to happen, I don't think I can send him Whataburger or Bluebell all the way to Milwaukee from Dallas, so I gotta think of something to send him, because I'm almost certain I'm gonna lose this bet.
But I'll guarantee you this, I believe Becky and Naomi, when they do lock up one-on-one, I think it would probably a very, if not good, if not great women's match. I think Becky, is probably the best of the four horsewomen, as they're dubbed. I think she is the, as crazy as her character supposedly is, she's actually probably the most safest and actually exciting member. Because honestly, when I look at most of them, Bayley is okay. Sasha and Charlotte, they look like every time I face, they're like doing these moves, almost killing each other, literally.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
the problem with Charlotte and Sasha that we saw was that they just try too hard. They're like, I think they're one of the worst cases of what I've said. They're just there's too many wrestlers nowadays that try too hard to put on a 5-star match every single time. They don't know how to pace themselves and sometimes let the story of the match carry themselves. It's why I'm really scared that especially Sasha is going to put herself in a wheelchair if she doesn't learn how to slow things down and pace herself. But yeah, I think you're probably right that Becky seems to have that knowledge, that she knows how to put on a good performance, but do it at a pace that's not going to just burn her out. And you know what? And then you've got you're pairing her up with other talents I think knows how to do that, like Alexa Bliss, who was just absolutely run with her character full throttle.
Oh,
and just
made
her one of the most intriguing, engaging characters, one of the best heel divas I've seen in a long time. And that's just one of the things that, especially I think as long as Alexa Bliss is in the title picture, I think the SmackDown Women's division is going to be as compelling as anything. So yeah, anything SmackDown does with the women's title at WrestleMania, I'm definitely going to tune in.
Oh yeah, I think that's really good. And we can end it up with that, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me, Dukect and Rowdy C, here on the Dukect Lounge. Chris, you got any final words?
Just I'll be summarizing my what I thought about the storylines again more when you check out the next Wrestling Mark show on for my page. It'll be shared with my Patreons this coming Monday for everyone who subscribes at patreon.com/RowdyC Productions. And the next review there will be when I review the Saturday night's main event from March of 1987 that was made to hype up WrestleMania 3. I'll be covering that. Meanwhile, the same week on TV Trash, we'll be reviewing Gilligan's Planet, so watch out for that. And we'll have a lot more interesting stuff coming up on RowdyC.com and for all Rowdy C Patreon supporters.
Okay, thank you so much for watching and listening here on the Dukect Lounge. We'll see you next time. Peace and love. We'll see y'all when I see y'all later.